गोपीजनवल्लभा जयो गिरिवरधारी जयो गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दना जय व्रजजनरञ्जना यमुनतीरावनचारी जय कुञ्जबिहारी जय कुञ्जबिहारी जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। हरे कृष्ण। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। हरे कृष्ण। Hare Krishna. Today we are reading from the first canto, chapter 18, text number 22. So I'd request all the devotees to kindly repeat after me. Yatra nurakta sahasaiva dhira vyapo yadehadishu sangamudam व्रजन्ति तत्पारमहंस्य मन्त्यम् यस्मिन् अहंसो पशमस्वधर्मः यत्रनुरक्ताः सहसैव धीरा व्यापो यदेहादिषु सङ्गमूढम् व्रजन्ति तत्पारमहंस्य मन्त्यम् यस्मिन् अहंसोपशमस्वधर्मः यत्रानुरक्ता सहसैव धीरा व्यापो यदेहादिषु सङ्गमूढम् व्रजन्ति तत्पारमहंस्य मन्त्यम् यस्मिन् अहंसोपशमस्वधर्मः Hare Krishna. Word to word meaning, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Yatra, unto whom, anuraktaha, firmly attached, sahasa, all of a sudden, eva, certainly, dhiraha, self-control, vyapoyaha, leaving aside, deha, the gross body and subtle body, Adishu, relating to. Sangam, attachment. Udam, taken to. Vrajanti, go away. Tat, that. Paramahamsyam, the highest stage of perfection. Antyam, and beyond that. Yasmin, in which. Ahimsa, non-violence. Upashamaha, and renunciation. Swadharmaha, consequential occupation. Translation: self-controlled persons who are attached to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna can all of a sudden give up the world of material attachment, including the gross body and subtle body, and go away to attain the highest perfection of the renounced order of life, by which non-violence and renunciation are consequential. Purport: only the self-satisfied can gradually be attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Self-controlled means not indulging in sense enjoyment more than is necessary. And those who are not self-controlled are given over to sense enjoyment. Dry philosophical speculation is a subtle sense enjoyment of the mind. Sense enjoyment leads one to the path of darkness. Those who are self-controlled can make progress on the path of liberation from the conditional life of material existence. The Vedas therefore enjoin that one should not go on the path of darkness, but should make a progressive march towards the path of light or liberation. Self-control is actually achieved not by artificially stopping the senses from material enjoyment, but by becoming factually attached to the Supreme Lord by engaging one's unalloyed senses in the transcendental service of the Lord. The senses cannot be forcibly curbed, but they can be given proper engagement. Purified senses, therefore, are always engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord. This perfectional stage of sense engagement is called a Bhakti Yoga. So those who are attached to the means of Bhakti Yoga are factually self-controlled and can all of a sudden give up their homely or bodily attachment for the service of the Lord. This is called the Paramhamsa stage. Hamsas or swans accept only milk out of a mixture of milk and water. Similarly, those who accept the service of the Lord instead of Maya's service are called the Paramhamsas. They are naturally qualified with all good attributes such as pridelessness, freedom from vanity, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, respectability, worship, devotion, and sincerity. All these godly qualities exist in the devotee of the Lord spontaneously. Such Paramhamsas who are completely given up to the service of the Lord are very rare. They are very rare even amongst the liberated souls. Real non-violence means freedom from envy. In this world, everyone is envious of his fellow being, but a perfect Paramhamsa, being completely given up to the service of the Lord, is perfectly non-envious. He loves every living being in relation with the Supreme Lord. Real renunciation means perfect dependence on God. Every living being is dependent on someone else because he is so made. Actually, everyone is dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Lord, but when one forgets the relation with the Lord, he becomes dependent on the condition of material nature. Renunciation means renouncing one's dependence on the conditions of material nature and thus becoming completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. Real independence means complete faith in the mercy of the Lord without dependence on the conditions of matter. This Paramhamsa stage is the highest perfectional stage in Bhakti Yoga, the process of devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratushe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Giram Yat Kripa Tamaham Mande Shri Gurundi Natarinam. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all the devotees for today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. So this was a class which was at an extremely short notice. I never imagined, even in my wildest dreams, that I would be giving the class today. Just somehow, due to unfortunate circumstances, emergencies that arose. So I was instructed by Kanai Thakur Prabhu to render this service to all of you all of giving this class. Though I'm utterly unqualified, I do not have any qualification to sit here at such an elevated platform and speak something on the Srimad Bhagavatam. But as an instruction by my superiors, it's purification of my heart and most importantly, glorification of Sri Krishna. And last but not the least, to give all happiness to give happiness to all of you, I will try to speak some few words on this most important verse. So, can you do the translation of the translation? So, very beautiful translation. So, before we come to this verse, I will just give a brief background as to how is that we have come. So, in the previous chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Sutta Goswami describes about the glorious rule of Parikshit Maharaj. He describes as to how Parikshit Maharaj and how he very wonderfully ruled. And in the first section of this particular chapter, he comes to the Sutta Goswami comes to a halt in his narration. And here the sages are encouraging Sutta Goswami, telling him that, oh, you have so beautifully described this nectarian, ambrosial wave of Krishna Katha. So kindly please continue. And Sutta Goswami in ecstasy, he glorifies Krishna. They glorify, the power of association of a pure devotee like Sutta Goswami. And they go on to say, what is the glory of Krishna? Sutta Goswami goes on to say. And finally, just in short, we come to this particular verse where Sutta Goswami is glorifying those self-controlled persons, dhiras, who are attached to Sri Krishna. So this translation says, self-controlled persons who are attached to the Supreme Lord Krishna can all of a sudden give up the world of material attachment. So the question that may arise, just by simply being attached to Sri Krishna, can one suddenly give up all material attachment? Is it so easy? Is it possible just suddenly give up material attachments? Of course. There is many beautiful examples from the Srimad Bhagavatam like that we see of Parikshit Maharaj and Bharat Maharaj. But let us try to see it from the perspective of the Bhagavad Gita, that in order to be able to reach such a stage of suddenly giving up, there is certainly a homework to be done. And you will repeatedly, you will see places in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is saying, in order to be able to reach such a platform of being fixedly attached to Krishna, first, the very, very first thing is control over the senses. There has to be, a decent control over your senses. And you will see multiple places in the Bhagavad Gita. Today morning itself, I was just trying to recall where in the Bhagavad Gita Krishna is explicitly mentioned. Before you can come to the platform of getting the highest taste and state of being firmly fixed, there is a prerequisite. Especially in the Bhagavad Gita, you will see many, many shlokas. So one shloka where Krishna is clearly said, Tani sarvani samyamya yukta ashita matpara. Then vashehi indriyani tasya pragya pratishtita. What is the meaning of this particular verse? How does samyamya yukta asita matpara? First, what is Krishna saying? First you need to control the senses and then fix your consciousness upon me. So this is a very, very important instruction given by Krishna. Radheshyam Prabhu, in this respect, he gives a very beautiful understanding as to how these both aspects need to be done parallelly. It's not that, okay, I only control my senses, I only withdraw my senses from the sense objects. In other words, you deprive yourself from the sense objects. But you see, and this is what is the path of Jnana Yoga. The path of Jnana Yoga is where you're depriving your senses from the sense objects. But as a result of that deprivation, there is no satisfaction or there is no connection. And therefore, he once again falls down. And such a person, is called a person who has apparently, from an external point of view, has taken karma sannyas, who has given up, who has renounced the worldly possessions of this world. But if he again goes back, in the Vedic culture, such a person would be labeled as a Vantashi. Now, he's not a superhero character here. Vantashi is one who is the eater of his own vomit. Such a person who has renounced everything, but once again come back to material enjoyment, such a person is called, this person is an eater of his own vomit. So in the Vedic society, such a person is condemned. He is condemned. But this is the path of Jnana Yoga, very, very difficult. But in the path of Bhakti Yoga, in this particular verse, it is the first instance where Krishna is telling, fix your consciousness upon me. Yukta asita mat paraha. Mat, me. Previously in Bhagavad Gita, you see Krishna is, referring to the Supreme, referring to Brahman, but Krishna, this is the first instance in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is saying, fix your consciousness upon me, become attached to me. So, in this regard, there's a story from the Mahabharata where after the Pandavas, after the entire episode of the burning of the house of Lac, the Pandavas go into the forest and they meet a woman, in that particular forest. And the woman that particular lady was telling her sadness, her moroseness, her woes, that there is a particular demon living here called Bakasur. And every time what we need to do, we need to send some member of our community in order to become his meal. Maharani Kunti said, don't worry. I will send my son Bhima. He will do the rest. Bhima unka काम तमाम कर देगा, आप उसके चिंता करने की जरूरत नहीं है. तो Bhima, Maharani Kunti sent Bhima, and Bhima, what did he do? In relation to this verse, Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matparaha. So the demon Bakasur came, but in one hand, what he was doing, he was punching the demon, and as he would punch the demon would go very far. And in that meantime, what would he do? He would nourish himself by eating the whole cartload of food that was actually meant for Bakasur. He would eat it. In this way, a very important illustration to this particular incident we learn is that you have to control your senses. At the same time, you have to fix your consciousness upon Krishna through various ways, through various means and ways. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, the 9 processes of devotional service, as perfectly delineated by our Prahlad Maharaj. So just like Bhima, what was he doing? Bhima, he punched that demon, but at the same time, he was taking his nourishment. He was nourishing himself by eating. And as soon as he nourished himself, you would get the strength. You would get the strength to fight again the demon, again another punch. And then again, he would take his dosage of the next meal. In that way, this is how a sadhaka living in this world should act. While controlling his senses, he should be engaged in Krishna consciousness. A very, very important lesson. So, tani sarvani samyamya yukta ashita matparaha. Another instance in the Bhagavad Gita comes in the 5th chapter in the 5th chapter, where Krishna is saying, Bhaya sparsha asaktatma vindanti atmani yat sukham sa brahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute. Where in this verse, this is Bhagavad Gita 5.21, where Krishna is saying, Bhaya sparsha asaktatma. So what does this once again indicate? Bhaya, sparsha. Sparsh means touch. As soon as the senses come in touch with the sense objects. Oh, bhaya sparsha asaktatma. Oh, you become detached. You should become detached. And as a result of when you become detached, vindanti atmani yat sukham. Become detached from the sense objects and at the same time seek happiness from within. And what is our way of seeking happiness is by engaging ourselves in Krishna conscious activity. And then as a result, what happens? Sa Brahma Yoga Yuktatma. Then you will be yukt, you will be connected to Brahman, and Sukham Akshayam Ashnute. And as a result, what will happen? That will become a source of unlimited happiness. Now, at this point, one may ask a question. Okay, Krishna, you're asking us to become indifferent to material happiness. But you see, this, because Prabhupada is talking about in the verse, the self-control person. And we are trying to understand the first line of the translation. Self-control persons who are attached to Krishna, they can give up their attachment suddenly. But Bhagavad Gita very clearly delineates the concept, no, there is a background to be done. And the first thing is, you have to control your senses. So in continuation in this, the very first thing so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur very beautifully, he creates a conversation. One may say, okay, you're telling me to become indifferent for material happiness, but it's not so easy. It's not very, very easy to remain deprived from material sense happiness. And what should we do? Because the pleasures in this world seem very, very tangible. So therefore, because in this world we also see when we go in the outside world, we normally say, okay, absorb your consciousness in Krishna, but it is very difficult because when you go in the outside world in the form of the advertisements and the media, Maya is ultra visible. She is visible. But on the other hand, Krishna seems to be invisible to us. So, and to be able to control yourself from such pleasures is very, very difficult. So the question that me asks, so why should I give up? Why should I give up the sense pleasures? To that, in response to this question, Krishna says, oh, you should give it up. Why? Yehi samsparsha ja bhoga dukkha yona evate adi antavantah kaunteya na te shuramate buddha. So what is Krishna saying? Yehi samsparsha ja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate. As soon as you come, the senses come in contact with the sense objects, what happens? The sense objects are impregnated with suffering. And therefore, it only produces misery. Adi antamantaha. And that misery is in the beginning and it lasts till the end. Na teshu ramate buddha. A person who is intelligent will not indulge himself into such contact of where the senses and the sense objects comes in contact. Then one may say, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he very beautifully says that, okay, I know that pleasure leads to so much of misery. Krishna, give me a solution. What should I do then? Oh, then the next verse. Yah shaknoti haiva shodam prak sharira vimokshanat. What is it? Kama krodha udbhava vegam sa yukta sa sukhi nara. Where Krishna is saying, oh, what you should do? You should tolerate. Sometimes when devotees come and say, Prabhu, can you give me a solution? And sometimes the very obvious answer is, oh, tolerate. What's the big deal? Just tolerate. Krishna is also saying the same thing. So we should not look for different answers. Krishna is also reconfirming. Krishna is saying, Tam Titikshasa Bharata. Here also he is saying, oh, Kam, Krodh. And what should we tolerate? The urges arising from Kam and Krodh. Lust and anger. Till when? Pra, Sharira, Vimokshanat. Oh, what a struggle. Till the end of life, I have to keep control over my senses. Till the end of life, how difficult it is. But Krishna is saying, Sa yukta sa sukhi nara. Such a person can remain happy. And then what does he say? Now one may say, oh, tolerance is very, very difficult. It seems to be depriving yourself. Krishna is saying, oh, this tolerance can be made easier when you get a higher taste. When you get a higher taste, in other words, when you turn inwards. Where Krishna is saying the next verse, Yo antah sukha antar aramas. When you go internal, you go internal. And how do you go internal? When the external spiritual sense objects, when they are engaged in Krishna service, that helps our consciousness to be directed inwards. So the external sense objects helps to direct our consciousness inwards. So once again, another aspect where Krishna is saying, Bhaya Sparsha Asaktatma. Oh, first you need to control your senses. A second instance. Third instance in the same Bhagavad Gita. Tasmat Tvam Indriyani. What's the word there? Adau. In the very, very beginning, what should you do? Again, the same thing is being reverberated. The same thing has been echoed. The same thing has been emphasized. That first you need to control your senses. That's what needs to be done. That is 3 instances. 4th instance. Can you tell me what is the first verse of Nectar of Instruction? Vacho vegam, manasakroda vegam, jivha vegam, udhara upasta vegam. Again, Krishna is saying, control the sense of urge of, vacha vegam, the urges that arise from the stomach, belly and the genitals. Again, the same thing is being emphasized again and again. First, you need to control the senses. Only when you control your senses, then you can talk about Radha Prem and Krishna Prem and whatnot. Getting into the most esoteric pastimes of Radha Krishna. Oh, that is a far-fetched idea. Then the last works talks about Radha Kunda, which is the Prem Sarovar. So that's the end point. But first, everything starts with, first control your senses. That's the basic instruction of the Gita. Krishna is telling. So a prerequisite, self-controlled persons who attach to the Supreme Lord can all of a sudden. So that's why we need to understand this it's not all of a sudden. There is a homework, a good amount of homework that has been done, because of which he is able to come to that peak, to that platform where he can say, aha, now I don't need anything of this. I can now give it up. You can see the example of and you see such examples of Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj, it is compared in the Srimad Bhagavatam, he gave up everything like the one gives up his stool. Now, do you turn behind and see, oh, I have given up something so precious. You quickly flush it and you just go on and continue with your work. That's an instance where you suddenly give up. But there is an entire homework. So we cannot prematurely imitate such a state where you can give up material attachment. So including the gross body and subtle body, and go away to attain the highest perfection of the renounced order of life, by which non-violence and renunciation are consequential. So a very important word that is talked about in the translation is, when you become attached. So therefore, these two things need to be cultivated simultaneously. As they say, artha pravrti and anartha nivritti. You work on detaching yourself, but the downward vector and as well as the upward vector of attachment to Krishna through the 9 processes of devotional service needs to be cultivated. Otherwise, we see one extreme. Oh, you become only attached to Krishna, then what will happen? It results into sahajism, and this is something not very good. So go away to attain the highest perfection of the renounced order of life, by which non-violence and renunciation are consequential. So another concept that we will talk about today is about renunciation. What exactly, when Krishna is talking about renunciation, what is renunciation? Again, according to the Bhagavad Gita, what is actually true renunciation? That is what we will see. And we will also talk about various instances in the life of, many wonderful acharyas. So, renunciation is something which is very, very astonishing. When a person leaves his home, and goes to join, especially in the brahmachari ashram. Oh, everybody are astonished. What kind of person is he? How could he do such a thing? Especially outside, people ask, "Tum log har din, pura din mandir mein karte kya ho? What do you do in the temple the whole day?" Especially my grandmother. In the morning I would be in the temple, in the afternoon in the temple, in the night I would sleep in the temple, again in the morning in the temple. She would get totally bewildered. So astonishing, when people take up to such a path, it becomes totally bewildering to them. Why is it so bewildering? Because they cannot conceive. For them, for the outside people, you go to the temple, 30 seconds, you take darshan, and that's it. Enough. You're done for the day. And go off to your material duties. But by the higher taste in Krishna consciousness that we have got by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and our superiors, day in, day out, we can stay in the temple. Day in, day out. That is something so inconceivable for people outside. And therefore people say, oh, that you're depriving yourself of the enjoyment of this world. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Giriraj Maharaj, in his book called The Juhu Story, he narrates this instance, how Srila Prabhupada, when Giriraj Maharaj, he was serving Srila Prabhupada in Bombay, and he had gone to visit his parents in the United States, to recover his health, especially because of the austerities that he had to encounter time and time again because of being in the heated atmosphere in Mumbai and the dealings. He went back to America for a temporary period of time in order to recuperate. In the meantime, his father appointed a psychologist, that I request you kindly please see my son. I think my son has gone mad. He's gone stupid. He's gone crazy. He's doing all kind of things. Kindly talk to him. So Giriraj Maharaj went to the psychologist, and so very interesting conversation took place. So the psychologist asked, "So what is your name?" "Oh, my name is Giriraj Das." "Who are you?" "Oh, I'm not the body, I am the soul." When the psychologist heard this, she was totally bewildered. What? You're not the body, you're the soul. What are you talking about? And to every question that was asked to Giriraj Maharaj, he would give a reply in Sanskrit. And the person was totally not able to understand what is he doing. And at the end of the entire conversation, the psychologist went to the father and told them, "If I associate with this crazy person any longer, I will become like him. So kindly please take him away." So this is what, for the outside world, renunciation is so astonishing. People cannot understand. But we understand, irrespective of one's ashram, we need to understand the essence of renunciation. What is renunciation? Renunciation means to dedicate our body, mind, words to Krishna. To increase Krishna time and to maximize Krishna time and to minimize Maya time. That is what is actually the essence of renunciation. And therefore Krishna very beautifully describes in the Bhagavad Gita, even renunciation is something which can be classified into 3 modes. Renunciation in the mode of ignorance, renunciation in the mode of passion, and renunciation in the mode of goodness. Renunciation in the mode of ignorance is renouncing out of illusion. And the perfect example for this is the hippies in America. "Oh, I do not want anything of this world." Their policy is anyone above 30, reject them. renounce them, give them up. You don't want them. That is renunciation in the mode of ignorance. Renunciation in the mode of passion is, renunciation in the mode of passion, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, doing my duty, doing my prescribed duties is causing me so much of discomfort. So let me just give it up. It is causing me so much of inconvenience. And who is the perfect example for that? Arjuna, in the Bhagavad Gita. He is saying, Gurun ahatva hi mahanubhavan shreyo bhoktam vaiksham apiha loke. It is better for me to go and beg in the forest than to fight the battle. So he was doing, because his spirit of renunciation was due to, I do not want to fight the battlefield. I do not want to fight the battle. I want to give up my duty. So this is mode of renunciation in the mode of passion. And then what about renunciation in the mode of goodness? Renunciation in the mode of goodness is detachment from the fruits of the activity. It does not talk about giving up material association and detachment from the fruits of activities. But the upward vector of attachment to Krishna is not present here in the mode of goodness. So it's good, no doubt about it. It's very good, but it's not the perfect thing. Like the example can be given here of Dhritarashtra. So how Vidura very forcefully, preached to him, telling him that, what are you doing, Dhritarashtra? You have already become blind, you are deaf, you are dumb, no, not dumb, you are deaf, you are deaf, and you are just eating the remnants thrown away by Bhima. You are just a household dog living in the palace of Yudhishthira Maharaj. Very, very heavy words. And these heavy words became a source of renunciation. And there Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives a very beautiful explanation. He says that actually Dhritarashtra gave up material association. He detached himself from material sense objects, but he could not cultivate the upward attachment to Krishna. Why? That is because of the result of offenses to the Pandavas. He committed so many offenses to the Pandavas that he could only become a Dhira. He could not become a Narottama. That is what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says. He could become a Dhira, a self-controlled person. But he could not become a Narottam. The transformation from a Dhira to Narottam is, through the process of Shravanam and Kirtanam, you cultivate the upward vector of attachment to Krishna, and then you become a Narottam. That Dhritarashtra could not do. So his renunciation is in the mode of goodness. I materially detach myself from my family, from the sense objects, and I go into the forest and think. But that is also not perfect renunciation. Especially in Srila Prabhupada's times, Mahatma Prabhu very beautifully writes. He says, there was a sannyas fever in the world of ISKCON, where everyone wanted to take sannyas. Prabhupada, we want to take sannyas. Everybody would write a letter to Prabhupada. Prabhupada, we want to take sannyas. And what was the reason of taking sannyas? You are free from management. That's the first. Second, every temple that you go, you will be first offered a plate of Mahaprasad. That was the second. And the third lucrative offer of taking sannyas in ISKCON in 1972-73 was that you get a personal servant to travel with. That was the definition of sannyas at that point of time. And there, the devotees, many of them became very frustrated in their household life, and therefore they would write a letter to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada and the secretary of Prabhupada would say, Prabhupada, another letter. So Prabhupada would ask, so who is this time? Then the devotee would say, Prabhupada, it is this particular devotee. Prabhupada then accordingly would say, okay, we could give him sannyas. Another time Prabhupada would say no. But when Mahatma Prabhu wrote a letter to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, I want sannyas. And Prabhupada wrote, write neither yes or no. Tell him he's nonsense. He's nonsense. Why does he think about sannyas right now? He's situated in the Grihastha ashram and he wants to prematurely give up his sannyas. That is not good. That is not good. So therefore, this is an example of sannyas in the giving renunciation in the mode of passion, not ignorance. This is renunciation in the mode of passion, where you want to run away from your duties and you want to give up. So this is also not very good. So therefore, renunciation should not be it's not a function of frustration, but it is a natural fruit of realization. And very beautifully, I was just reading one article of Chaitanya Charamparu. He says, um, while frustration can induce a sense of renunciation, but such renunciation is superficial. He says, because it lasts only till the prospects of material enjoyment become brighter and superficial, because it doesn't reflect any substantial change in the inner attitude of conceiving worldly objects as enjoyable. That's why such frustration does not lead to real renunciation. It is not real renunciation. That real renunciation means, when you have got a tangible higher taste in Krishna consciousness. So now, let us talk about, so we talked about renunciation in the three modes, but finally renunciation, devotional renunciation, which our acharyas have so beautifully exhibited. Acharyas starting, from the 6 Goswamis, from Raghunath Das Goswami, it had almost become a daily household affair where Raghunath Das Goswami would run away from his home. And every time so much attempts would be made in order to once again get him back home. Finally, the mother said to the father of Raghunath Das Goswami, what should we do? We should tie him with ropes. Only when we tie him with ropes, then he will not run away. And the father of Raghunath Das Goswami said, you foolish woman, what do you think? The ropes of material attachment in the form of such wonderful opulence, in the form of a wonderful house, in the form of such a beautiful wife. His wife is like as beautiful as Sachi, who is the wife of Indra. That could not bind him to this world. Then what will physical material ropes bind him? It's impossible. He's become Batul. He's become a crazy man. He's become a madman. There is no solution to his craziness. So this is what, that is what is called devotional renunciation, where you have become attached to Krishna. Self-controlled persons who are attached to Supreme Lord Krishna. So this is an impetus, of renunciation, where you have firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness. Because Raghunath Das Goswami was now fixed upon the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he could give up. And finally, you also, once again, you see in the Bhagavad Gita, another aspect of renunciation means, okay, Krishna, I am ready to do what you say. No, Karishe Vachanam Tava. That is what is most important. And therefore, it is understood very clearly that Arjuna did not fight the battle any longer. His impetus of fighting the battle was not that I have to perform my Kshatriya duty. I have to perform my prescribed duty. The impetus to fight the same battle now was, because Krishna has told me, and now I want to please Krishna, so therefore I should fight this battle. So we see this, we learn another aspect of renunciation. And renunciation means, okay, attachment of Krishna, but you're ready to give up, your worldly, your opinions of what you understand to be devotional service. Many times we have a definition of our devotional service. Okay, this is how I should do by hearing, this is how I should do by reading. But no, bhakti means having a guru. Guru means you have to take guidance. That is what is the understanding. So renunciation means I give up, or Maharaj would very famously say, renunciation means renunciation of false ego, renunciation of our ahankar. That, I am, dear Lord, dear Lord, whatever I am asked to do, I do it. So this is how, this is devotional renunciation. We also see the example of Parikshit Maharaj. How beautifully, his renunciation is also so devotional. He gives up everything. He had everything in his power to curse Shringi. But he did not do that. Rather, he took this as an opportunity to once again come closer to Krishna. He turned this adversity into an opportunity to come all the more close to Krishna. So this is another example. So this is what is true or real renunciation. Real renunciation means to engage our word, our body, mind and words in the service of Krishna. And we should be attached to pleasing Krishna. So I'll just conclude within 2-3 minutes. So we talked about this renunciation, but I talked about renunciation is giving up your opinions as to understand
what is renunciation? The classical example of this is Priyavrit Maharaj. Priyavrit Maharaj was in the renounced order of life. But what was Priyavrit Maharaj asked to do? Renounce your renunciation. You see? Renounce your renunciation. Don't be attached to becoming renounced. Priyavrit Maharaj was in the Gandhamandana mountains, taking instruction from Narad Muni. What could he be more asking for? But then who comes? Brahma comes. Please come and take up this kingdom. First Priyavrit Maharaj was reluctant, but finally he understood that this is the will of the Lord, and it was a time where the further dynasty, the lineage had to continue. So therefore, because of his attachment to Sri Krishna, because of wanting to please his superiors, he took this instruction onto himself. Yes. In other words, he was ready to renounce his renunciation. So this is what is, true renunciation. The perfection of renunciation lies in giving up your worldly opinions and surrendering your false ego. Another aspect of renunciation that our acharyas especially talk about is, yukta vairagya. That, what is yukta vairagya? The definition of yukta vairagya, the very first line in the definition in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu starts with anasaktasya vishayan. Now, many a times devotees say, I'm engaging this particular object in service of Krishna. No, the very pre-qualification of it is anasaktasya vishayan. You have to detach you should be completely detached from the sense object in order to be able to engage that particular sense object in Krishna service. Otherwise, that very sense object, which you may be apparently engaging in Krishna service, that will become a cause of your entanglement. So, this is the very first question that we need to ask. First, we need to have vairagya, then only we can do yukta. This is what is yukta vairagya. First, have detachment from the sense object in itself, and then only engage that sense object. And this we can see perfectly in the life of Srila Prabhupada. I will conclude with this particular pastime. So Srila Prabhupada was in one of the most expensive hotels in Hong Kong, the Hilton Hotel. And there were a group of reporters who came to Srila Prabhupada, in his suite, his room, and asked him, Swamiji, you talk about renunciation, but your renunciation is hypocritical. You are residing in a 5-star hotel. How do you claim to be yourself to be renounced? Prabhupada clarified, do you know what is real renunciation? What is the problem? If Krishna's servant is using Krishna's opulence to glorify Krishna, then what is the problem? Is there any problem in it? And Prabhupada said that if I am not attached to anything. I am detached. I am also ready to stay under a tree. But would you be ready? Would you come and interview me like this if I was not staying here? No, you wouldn't have. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada, this is the perfect spirit of renunciation. I am not attached to anything. But I use these things just to serve Krishna. If at the opportune moment I am asked to give it up, I should be ready to give it up. And if this is not happening, then we need to question ourselves. I may be adorning, a shaven head I'm talking for myself, the dress of, a renounced person. But I may be externally renounced, but internally there are attachments in the heart. So that's, as a sadhaka, we need to work upon these, attachments. And we also see the example of our acharyas like Sanatana Goswami, attachment to Krishna and opulence to Krishna and opulence for Krishna and poverty for oneself. Sanatana Goswami was not attached to anything. He was, he was just practically living in one kopan, one uttari. That's all he had. He had nothing for himself. But when it came to building a temple for Madan Mohan, oh yes, I am ready to accept the opulence, on behalf of the Supreme Lord in order to, build a beautiful temple for Madan Mohan. So this, our acharyas teach us, renunciation in the true spirit. And that is what, if you read the purport, if you go down in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning about the very same fact. Renunciation means, real renunciation means, can you just go down? Now, why am I telling you all this? Is for a very important statement that comes in the purport. Renunciation means renouncing one's dependence on the conditions of material nature and thus being completely dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Lord. And I'll conclude with this pastime. There are so many thoughts that are coming, So I was just recently talking, Kanai Thakur Prabhu after the visit of Jayadat Maharaj. So all of us know that how Prabin Prabhu is serving, Jayadat Maharaj so wonderfully. He was so much appreciated for that particular service. And Jayadat Maharaj was asked, by Kanai Thakur Prabhu. So Maharaj, after you go out from India, then you may need someone. Maharaj said, it's okay. If someone is there, very good, no problem. If someone is not there, very good, no problem. What an equipoised answer. Not attached. If there is a servant, if there is a person who can assist me, very good. If not, then no problem at all. So this is what? A person who's completely dependent upon Krishna's mercy. This is what is called 100 dependence on Krishna. And this is what is the true spirit of renunciation. With these words, it's easy to speak on an elevated platform about renunciation and talk big words. But please pray for me that I also inculcate the spirit of renunciation, where I give up my attachment to my opinions and listen to the instructions of the Supreme Lord in and my superiors. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.